Give us a signal. Okay, perfect. So, hello everyone to another episode of Coffee with Gable. With me is Paul. He's the VP of Communication and Remote Working at Cimpress and Vistaprint. And I'm so excited to have you here as an honored guest, as well as like a personal connection that I really like you as a person, as a leader, that I think you've really turned around everything that is happening in your company, really embraced the future of work. And I think together. And basically, we'll kick it over to you. Can you hear me okay, Paul?
Yeah, you just broke up a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it's the signal at my end.
Oh, it's okay. So yeah, the wonders of internet.
I was so enjoying that fantastic and kind introduction you were doing as well, and then it broke up. And I must say, I haven't single-handedly turned anything around. We have a fantastic team here who've all been driving the first agenda. I would hate for anyone to think it was all me, and no doubt if it was all me, it would have been a complete disaster.
Behind every amazing person, there is an amazing team. It's always like that. So I'm 100% sure. So let's dive right into many questions that we have for you. The first one is like, basically, how did you identify that, you know, in this pandemic, there's so much going on. People were forced to work from home. How did you see this evolve and basically turn this around as an opportunity, you and the team?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody else, we started working remotely in March of last year, and by May, executives were just so happy with the feeling that productivity and engagement was high, and despite everything, team members had no desire to return to the office full time, even post-pandemic. In July, we determined, the executive team decided that we wanted to make a deliberate and permanent shift to remote working, embracing it as Robert, our founder, described it and gave us the challenge, embracing it as a towering strength of our culture. So not just fix the problems that everyone was having, but really make this a towering strength of who we are. And I must say, when we communicated last summer, it was like a gift to our team members. In a world of zero certainty at that point in time, we could give them certainty that they would be able to work remotely even after the pandemic, even when schools reopen, even, you know, with whatever was happening. And it was just so nice. And as a communicator, it was nice because we as a team were being continually asked, when are we going to revisit the decision? When are we out until? When are we going to make a permanent decision? And so it was just so nice to do. And once that decision was made, we embarked on the transition. We just went for it. We ramped up a project team, started building a project plan, and we were building a long-term roadmap. But we wanted value drops, if not weekly, then at least every other week, so that people were seeing an improvement in their experience now, as well as a vision for the future. And so, yeah, it was decided quickly. We moved quickly, and you know, we are a long way from finished in this transformation. But we've come a long way from where we started as well.
And what were the key pillars that you identified that need, you know, to address immediately?
I think but from a team member experience perspective, we had a lot. Remote onboarding was one of the things we wanted to get into right away. Learning and development and sharing skills around remote working. Everybody lifted their work, their computer, their papers, took them home and carried on as they had. And clearly we wanted to give people skills to be able to unleash at least some of the benefits during pandemic remote forced working that we will eventually have when we get to remote first. So skills, we wanted to dedicate resource to this straight away. We wanted to visit policy and procedure very, very quickly, just so that people felt there was progress. And then financial support was one of the important things, to give people help with the costs of working remotely. So yeah, I think all of the aspects of what you would expect. We needed people to have as productive a workspace as possible, some tools and skills, and hopefully financially support them as well very quickly.
And actually, I think part of the biggest things in remote work is the ability to communicate and maybe over communicate, right? So for you as a VP of communications, how do you see your role evolved, during this time? And how do you implement this in this new remote first company?
Yeah, well, the role of communications in our business, and I have a fantastic communication team in both Cimpress and Vistaprint, is to accelerate the company's achievement of its goals. And this was another goal that we needed to achieve. And so in that way, it's very similar. And the shift to remote had a massive communication challenge attached to it, so that our team members knew where we were going and what they could access to help them. And so communications was a really good fit. But to be honest, I volunteered to do this because I was so excited about it. I've been with the company for nearly 11 years now. I know a lot of the people. I think I understand lots of the challenges that we have without this. And so as I said, with amazing teams in HR and IT and real estate and all of the functions that you could imagine across the organization, it was just a great time for us to get this group of people together and to start to move. So I think my role is evolved because I spend less time in communication. That's good for my communication team because they're stepping up and leading and doing a great job. I spend a lot of time on remote. I've learned so much about remote. I'm so grateful to the remote community, like you and Darren Murph and Nellie Hyatt and 100 other people that I could name who are just so generous with their time and wisdom and learning. For all of us newbies who've come to this remote part in the last year, it's been they've been so generous.
I think, first of all, you graduated from a newbie at this point, for sure. And so I think that basically part of this, you described the process, right? That you did with different verticals, effectively, right? But how long did this process take, and what would you recommend other companies that in your position that want to adopt this? What would be a good starting point, and how long does this process should take?
Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take because I feel like we're just at the start.
You're still in there, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, and it won't be until a long time after the pandemic, I think, that we'll even think about ramping down our focus on all of the relevant issues, let alone declaring victory. I don't know if we would ever get there, but I think you said what would the first steps and what would the advice be? I think, dedicating people to the biggest topics is definitely one. We've got a couple of people focused full time on remote onboarding, on async culture change and behaviors, on learning and development, and those people wake up every day with the challenge and the excitement and the motivation to fix issues in that space. And it isn't one of 10 things on their to-do list, it's the thing on their to-do list. And so really picking those biggest remote opportunities and dedicating people to working on those was really, really important to us. And then, like I said, we wanted a long-term roadmap, but we really wanted the short-term wins. We set guiding principles at the start of this, which have guided us to the work. For example, one of them is taking extensive input from our team members throughout the transition. And so we've continually surveyed and listened and talked on Slack and really focused on the issues they were telling us they wanted us to focus on. All of those things have brought us goodwill with people moving to this change, and I think we've got a very patient, and we really appreciate the patience of our team members through this transition.
And so you mentioned you surveyed a lot of your employees, and I think it is a common thread between among guests to really treat your employees as your customers in this new remote, product basically that you are building. So I'm wondering what were like the key questions that you think are super important to ask when company leaders are doing these surveys or like creating an understanding of what is happening with the employees, and also some interesting insights that you haven't thought would come from these surveys.
Yeah. So we have a survey that's only just closed, and we've had a good proportion of our team members respond, and it's been remarkably consistent throughout the whole process. But this is probably the most candid opportunity we gave team members to mark our homework, if you like, and tell us how we're doing. And it's not that all of the surveys haven't had big open text boxes to give us both barrels if they wanted to, but with this we asked very specific questions about do you think this was still the right decision? How are we doing in the transition? And we asked people to on a scale of strongly agree to strongly disagree, for example, answer the question, is remote first for us on the way to being a towering strength of our culture? And so we really have been open to direct feedback all the way through on how we're doing and what we need to do better and differently. In terms of interesting insights, this survey was, we have 2% of people who want to return to an office 5 days a week. Post the
wow.
And that's even lower than the 6% or the 8% that we've had previously. So that's a really good sign.
Amazing.
But we also have a lot of people who would like to be in some form of real estate with some of their colleagues a day a week or a couple of days a week, or they would like a space to do focused work that isn't their home, which I know is something really close to your heart.
Yes.
And so we remote first to us has absolutely always been about we will meet again, we will have events, we will open our offices again as collaboration centers with a smaller footprint, but with zero requirement for people to be there any number of days in a week, but it's there for you if you want to use it. And I'm really excited as we get through the summer to see how people do start to use those spaces. Yeah.
Amazing. And you mentioned culture. So that's another thing that I do think that is changing quite a bit from moving, to an office-based culture to a remote-first-based culture. So how do you see this as, changing, and how do you prepare for it, I would say? What changes have you done or foresee in that? How do you keep company culture when employees, you see, only 2% will actually come to the office 5 days a week? So how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're giving more and more thought to. I guess this would be harder if we were previously one company in one location and everybody came to one location every day and everything happened around that specific piece of real estate. We have 40 offices around the world for all of our different businesses. We're literally in every part of the world. We have a very international team. Many teams are made up of team members from 4 or 5 countries. And so to some extent, they were already kind of remote.
Distributed, yeah, remote.
Yeah, they were distributed. And so we're not in the place where this is a complete shift. I think our culture has held up really well. And I think team members have been supportive of each other. The company has been really focused on the well-being of team members throughout this period. We've really tried to make sure that the tools and tech have kept people connected. We've also empowered people. One of the things I haven't mentioned yet that I think is one of the most important pieces of work that we've done is building a handbook for remote team members to access the information they need as in all things remote. And some of the things in there are like a big chapter on remote team events and how you can bring people together, and people are sharing what's worked for them. And we've shared a whole load of relatively inexpensive things that teams can do to just keep connection, including meeting while not doing any work, just meeting. And so all of those things have been well received. But I think when we're able to meet again in small and large groups, I think that'll just accelerate. I honestly feel like it'll feel like we haven't been away from each other.
And I think that's part of like really creating a good communication, like in and out, between the employees and the management, I would say. I think that's part of it, definitely. I'm wondering, like, from your experience, even, you are in a big company, but still, for founders, for, emerging entrepreneurs, how would you talk, like, what would you suggest them or recommend them doing about, like, how to create good communication, good collaboration? What are the key things that they should, keep in mind from the get-go? Because a lot of companies are being built right now as remote first companies, and I am 100% sure that this trend is going to only to accelerate. So wondering, from your experience and insights, do share.
Yeah, well, we are still founder-led. So the company's 25 years old, but Robert, who founded the company 25 years ago, is still our president,
yeah,
and insists on us staying small even as we grow, insists on us staying entrepreneurial. And so, yeah, that does feel familiar. Although clearly we're no longer a two-person startup in a spare bedroom of his apartment in Paris. I would say, of course, I would say, think about honest and transparent communication all the way through this process. I would say decide on this. Decide and tell people what that decision is, so that they have some certainty about what the future looks like. We've seen very big tech companies make a decision, change a decision, make another decision, which might change again, in my view. Decide and collaborate with your team, make a decision that's right for your team and your business, and then just move forward without a doubt, because post-pandemic, this will be one of the best things that could have happened in terms of making work better and making lives better for our team members. It won't suit every single person on the planet, and we talk with our team members often when we can about if they're one of the 6 or 7% who feel like this wasn't the right decision for them, how can we make it better? How can we really help you to get through this? So collaborate and talk. I would say have a cadence of communication that's just really clear. People know when you're going to communicate again, so they're not wondering, and they don't need to waste cycles wondering about what's going to happen, because they know on Thursday the 25th you're going to show up and you're going to tell them. And I think that really helps. Yeah, I would say build a handbook, so that the information people need is there and ready and available. It's centralized and it's available. And then I would say the last thing is, it's one of the best things that I've enjoyed. One of the things I've enjoyed most over this period is when we just ask team members to respond to a question like, what has remote working enabled you to do that you wouldn't have been able to do in an office all day? And you just get such fantastic stories that make everyone in the room feel good. Like, we've had team members who said they've been able to go travel and spend time with elderly parents while working, and they feel like they've built a relationship with their parents that they would not have had they been into an office every day. We've also asked questions like, what do you not miss about the office? And that just gets everyone thinking about everything from
a positive perspective, basically, in a sense, right?
And you hear people say fish in the microwave is the worst thing every lunchtime. we never want to go back to that. And then somebody else will,
I love it.
I'm really happy because I can make my fish in the microwave at home every day. get people feeling good. It's really not a good time in the world in many places right now, but have people feeling good about the good. As someone said to me, the fantastic thing about working from home is, first, you've got a job, and second, you've got a home.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's that like I think that's part of this the good things in a sense, right? Like we're not I think that this entire year is not really remote work. We all know this. Like we are hopefully getting back to what is really the future of work in that sense. So I'd love to hear from you on that as well. How do you see this going forward? How do you envision the future of work? Post COVID.
I know you said I'm not a noob anymore, but I really think
You're not a new.
I'm definitely
Take
not,
a guess, Paul.
I'm definitely not a futurologist on the future of work. What I hope for our team, what I really
Yes.
hope for our team is that they're able to experience work-life harmony in a way that they could not possibly achieve before, through being able to be there and present at all of their life's most personal and important moments, and be their most productive selves at the time that's right for them to be productive at work. And I feel like that's an aspiration that people have always wanted, and has always been slightly out of reach without working more hours or compromising one or the other. And I hope we get to a place which is closer to that work-life harmony, where people can feel like, not, oh, I've got to go to work and I can't do this, but great, I can do both of those things today.
I love it. I agree. I have a question for you on how do you think about handling the situation of really, like, because as you've seen, people will not come to the office all the time. Some will be fully remote. How do you are you thinking about really how people that are not all the time in the office, or like partially in the office, how will they have the same visibility, basically, right, on what they are doing, right, but what others are doing, as opposed to people that are more coming to the office? So previously, and I can tell you from personal experience, like from a person that I had to go to an office, you have to be there to be seen, in a sense, right? So how do you see this? How do you think about resolving this, office-based as opposed to home-based, and a combination of these
Yeah, I think a big part of making that okay is our guiding principle that your location should not be an advantage or a disadvantage. We set that as a very early target for our work with Remote First, and it does guide. Like, for example, we are going to open collaboration centers for team members to use if they're nearby, but we're not going to put Zoom room technology into all of the meeting rooms, so that we don't revert back to 6 people in a room and 1 person on a screen. Documentation is clearly very important if you're going to be transparent about the work that's going on. And so we're continuing to drive our skills at documentation. We have a long way to go. But I think the biggest thing that our executive team has done very well is they've been 100% remote the whole time. And I would expect,
I agree.
And so projects are not allocated now in the kitchen or in the cafeteria because you see someone in a corridor and you want to, and it just springs to mind. They're allocated thoughtfully. And people all over the world used to have a view that our company was US centric, because there was a lot of executives and a lot of team members in the US. And I think remote has done a lot to break that down and to create an even playing field for all of our team members around the world. Hiring as well. I mean, we're now hiring people all over the planet in places that we don't have real estate. We had team members in 9 US states this time last year, and today that number is 30 US states. And,
wow.
and you just can't go back to the thinking or the way that you did things before. And I think this is that, especially the hiring people all around the world is just going to drive that equality, for equality from a work sense, but also equality and diversity from just a population sense.
For sure, 100%. I completely agree. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about the handbook, like the guide. What do you recommend, for companies to have as pillars there? Is it more of an onboarding, more documentation? How do you see this right now, and how do you see this evolve?
Yeah, so we started with 0 3 or 4 months ago, and we've got 325 pages now of
Wow,
remote wisdom for team members to access. And it's
amazing.
from what's our philosophy, and how is the project going, and what's the latest update on each of our collaboration centers. So there's some real nuts and bolts about the project itself in there, right the way through to all of our evolving people policies and how they show up, like how do you claim your remote first expense offset each month, and so on. Right the way through to, as I said, here's some crowdsourced content on best team event, on best
Love it.
home working setup, on best webcam, on any aspect of your ergonomic setup. So everything that we can provide that will help people to be successful remotely. We've got quite a large section on asynchronous collaboration and how we think about that, but also tools and skills. Like there are some, we borrowed these from, I think it was Dropbox, who shared very genuinely and generously. Here are 3 sentences you can use to decline a meeting but still contribute to the project. And so we're really trying to equip all of the things that you need to be successful remotely in that handbook. And it's got a long way to go. It's not yet at GitLab's 100,000 pages.
One can only aspire, right?
I don't have a Guinness World Record for writing like Darren Murph does, so it's going to take me longer, but we will get there, and team members have received it pretty well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Any final thoughts, things that you want to share with the viewers, with our remote, followers and the community that can help?
I think this is great. I really enjoyed talking about this. I've enjoyed meeting people like you, Lisa, all the way through this remote journey, and I'd love to. We're nowhere near finished, but we've moved a long way from where we started, and I'd be more than happy to try and give something back and I know my remote first colleagues in Vistaprint and Cimpress would as well. So if anyone out there would like to connect and would be interested in anything that we've learned, and we would be more than happy to share. We don't intend to publish our handbook publicly yet, but we are completely open to sharing what we've learned, and if that works for somebody else, then we'd be more than happy to share it.
It's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for your time, Paul, and for overcoming Wi-Fi challenges and still having like an amazing, it's life. We're used to surprises by now, I think. So thank you so much. It was really, really interesting. Thank you for the time, and we'll speak soon. And thank you for all, everyone who joined us. And thank you. Bye, Paul.
You, Lisa, and good luck with Gable. It's an awesome product.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Bye, Paul.